Can't have a personal relationship with God. Everybody always says that. Personal relationship with God, you can't. You can't live for God on your own. That's not the way that God works. People have this thought in their head that you can just there's people out here that live for God, there's people over here that live for God. Maybe one person over here in this part of the world, maybe one person over here in this part of the world. That's not the way God works. God doesn't give people personal revelation. All right? You're not that special. He doesn't just want to lift you up with knowledge. He only gives people things that are important to the saving of other people's souls. All right? He doesn't want you walking around like, oh wow, God told me this, I'm so amazing. That's not what happens. And God is about truth and honesty. So you can't have this person out here, right? Just way over here and they live by themselves and they don't tell others the truth. It has to be a movement. That person, if God spoke to them and gave them a message and they were an honest person, then they would demand honesty from others and they would preach. They wouldn't stop themselves from preaching, right? Because why do people do that? Why do people not preach? Well, what's going to happen? This person's going to reject me. I'm going to lose something in my life. No, this person, if God speaks to them, it has to be a movement. They would have to be honest with others. Others would have to believe them. They would have to preach, give up this life for the preaching that God gave them. And they would have to be in unity. Truth is unity. You have to be in unity with one another or you don't have a message from God. I know everybody's got verses in their head, you know, like Elijah thought he was the only one, and then they said, well, I've got 7,000 that didn't bow their knee to Baal, but they still came through Moses. They didn't say, fuck Moses, fuck that guy, we believe something other than that. They still came through Moses. The way that the truth actually works is God's eyes go to and fro throughout the earth, seeking somebody whose heart is perfect towards him. There are times whenever nobody in the world has the truth, no one. This happens. Right? It happens often. But then somebody searches until they find God. Like, see, I'm upset because God gave me a message for the world. And I searched and searched and looked and looked. If somebody else would have already had that message, God would have simply sent me to them. I wouldn't have spent my whole life going, God, where is it? God, where is it? Nobody had broken that veil in our day and age. Nobody had actually gotten in touch with God and got a message from God. That's why they won't even tell you that you have to believe them. You just ask these people out here preaching, say, do I have to believe what you believe to make it to heaven? And they'll say no, because they don't have a real God. They don't have a message from God. If they did, they would say, this is God. I have faith in a real God. He did tell me this, and you do have to believe me. But they won't even tell you that you have to believe them. So the way it has always worked and the way it will always work is once somebody finds God, they seek, they give it their all, they find God, they bring a message about in their generation or in their age, and then God deals with humans. Right? He doesn't just come down and proof, here's this, like with the gospel. He didn't bring the gospel down and then just say, oh, well, you can have it over here and you can have it over here and you can have it over there. No, it spread throughout that whole empire, everywhere where the Jews were scattered. It was preached. It spread from people. Because if people cannot obey God, then people cannot believe God. If people cannot believe God, then nobody in the world has the truth. Whenever the gospel was in the world, right, God came, an angel came to Cornelius, the Gentile, because he was praying, and the angel said, Cornelius, your prayers have come up as a memorial before God. But he didn't say, here's the truth, Cornelius. That's not what he said, because he can't do it. He could not do it that way. He can't come to him. He's got to go through the other people. So he said, Cornelius, go find Simon Peter. And then told him where to find Simon Peter. And Simon Peter gave him the words of life. He didn't get them on his own. You guys will talk about, what about Paul? He was struck down. Well, before that happened with Paul, as Paul was on the road to Damascus, Peter was up on a housetop, the head of the church, Peter was up on a housetop, being told to accept the Gentiles. And Paul already knew about Jesus. He already knew the gospel. He was killing people that were preaching it. He already knew it. So he got struck down and said, hey, stop persecuting me. Right? In other words, other people already exist who have the truth. Why are you persecuting the people who have the truth? So Paul, what did he do? Right? First he went and preached, then he went and hung out with Peter for like 15 days. The reason God showed Peter before he showed Paul is because Paul could not do anything outside of what Peter was doing. Peter had to accept the Gentiles, or else Paul would have been like, well, I got this, and fuck Peter. you know. But Peter was like, no, by my mouth the Gentiles first heard. So the truth has to actually spread. We have a movement of God today, a truth in the world, and you have to believe us, and others have to believe you, and we have to be in unity. Without unity, it's lies. It's all lies. Lies cannot be in unity. That's why there's 45,000 different denominations. Literally no one sitting in a church with each other agrees with the other people sitting in church with each other. They all think it's just a personal relationship with God. But that's never been how God works. It's never going to be how God works. Why would he tell you something? What are you putting yourself up as? You know, I'm saying everybody has to be in unity and believe the message, right? And everybody says, well, that's pride. No, it's pride for you to think that he just gave you personal revelation that nobody else has to believe. You're so special that he just gave you this revelation. Nobody else has to believe it. Why didn't he give it to other people? And people will say, well, what about these people out here? What about these people out here? Everybody that comes into this message almost, they send me a message saying, I just had like the most intense prayer of my life. I fasted, or I didn't sleep for days, and I begged God for truth. And then as soon as I got online, I found your videos, because God will send you to the people who already have truth. As John said, a lot of people that believe this message, so-called believe this message, they don't want to become friends with the rest of the people in this message. They don't want it to be a group. They don't want it to be unity. They don't want to know the rest of the people in this message. Why? That's not the way it works. It's like John said, if you can't love your brother who you have seen, how can you love God who you've not seen? Right? We have to be in truth and unity. Now, there's always going to be things that arise. Nobody's perfect. But that's why Jesus' whole message was about unity. What did he say to do? A brother does something against you. First, you go to him personally. And then if he doesn't hear you, take 2 or 3 with you. And then if he doesn't hear you, tell the whole congregation. If he doesn't hear you, then let him be a heathen unto you. Right? Cast him out. He's done. He didn't want unity. And every single person will do something wrong to each other. But you have to come back to unity to have truth. So the people who admit their wrongs, bring them back in. Like Jesus said, if they admit it, 70 times 7 in a day, forgive them. But if they don't, there's nothing you can do at that point. You let them go. My point is, God is actual truth, and we have to be in truth. We have to love one another. We have to agree with one another. Our dreams have to be in unison. Your dreams won't be right from God. If you're a liar while you're awake, you'll be a liar whenever you're asleep. Right? They have to be the same. We have to be in unity. We have to come together. We have to care about one another. We have to believe what one another say. You got to believe the person that brought the message. If you can't believe the person that brought the message, then you get twisted in your own brain. How can you believe your own dreams if you don't believe the person who gave you the truth? They gave you the truth, you think they're some kind of manipulator. If you think the person that gave you truth is all full of pride, well, how did God do that? Did he come to a prideful person? See, nothing makes sense except for unity, truth, and an actual movement and an actual message of God. So you got to be in truth, you got to be in unity. And what's wrong with that? Do you want disunity? Do you want lies? Do you want to separate from one another? Do you want to argue with one another? Do you want to hate one another? But everybody's so puffed up with knowledge, and it has nothing to do with God. He doesn't care about your knowledge. He cares about salvation, which comes from a good heart, truth, honesty, unity, just like I'm saying here. Stop thinking that you can just live for God on your own. Stop thinking, well, God gave me this, and he gave somebody else this, and he gave somebody else this, and he gave somebody else this, and then we all get together. And no, that's not the way it works. God gives somebody a message. You have to agree with that message. If you don't, if neither one of you agree, then neither one of you are saved. You're both telling lies. So become part of this movement through everything. Yes, support also. Let's grow this thing. Become part of it. Give what you have to God. And one of the most important things is to get together with the other people in this group. The other believers. Become their friends. Why don't you want to become their friends? Why don't you want to be in unity with them? What is it that you are so great at that you can put down everybody else in this group and just be a lone gunman, or whatever you say? An island to yourself. Lone gunman. An island to yourself. I'm sorry, you're not that great. Nobody is. And God gives the message, right? The way that I got this message was through miraculous means, not my own brain. Everybody else thinks it's pride that I say God spoke to me. Well, what do you want? Everybody wants to hear somebody that actually got a message from God. That's what they're looking for. They're depressed in their life. They're sad in their life because they know that something is missing. Because God is an actual movement. He's actual truth. So they want to hear somebody who got a message from God. They want this. But then anybody who says, hey, God told me this, you have to believe me, they say, yeah, whatever. That's not pride. That's not what's prideful. To say that I didn't know anything, that I was an idiot, no matter how much I studied, no matter how much I prayed, until I started being honest and prayed to truth and truth only, and through miraculous means, through dreams that I never could have thought, through visions I never could have thought, God gave me this. I received it. Basically, all God told me was that I was dumb, and the truth's been right in front of everybody's face their whole life. He didn't tell me anything fancy. This isn't pride. It's pride to say, my study brought me this, my study brought me that. I figured this out through a feeling. I did this through all my great prayers, through all my many, many hours of praying. You know, that's pride. Then you think you received something. You didn't receive anything except for your own pride and your own knowledge. So this message came from God. Like Paul said, if you received it, who has anything that they didn't receive? If you received it, why do you boast as though you didn't receive it? Why do you boast as though you figured it out on your own? But, like Jesus said, if you do good to yourself, men will praise you. Alright? Or David said that. If you do good to yourself, men will praise you. If you lift yourself up, Jesus said if somebody comes in their own name, you'd believe them. But if somebody comes in the Father's name, you won't believe them. If somebody says, I don't have anything, I'm not smart, I actually received it from God, you won't believe us. Even though we say it came from God. But if somebody comes in their own name, man, their channels will grow. My name's DerichJester. I'm a scholar of the Bible. I studied the Bible this many years. Let me tell you what this one word means. Let me give you a whole video on one damn word. What's that going to do? Puff up your little brain? No. You're supposed to live for God. There are ways to salvation, and knowledge isn't it. It's good heart, it's truth, it's honesty, it's unity. So become part of this message. Get in touch with everybody. I got a Discord link, which I'll put in the bottom of this. We've got to the Post-Christian Church of God. And these came through dreams, you know, stuff like that. That's why we've named it what we've named it. That's why we've done everything that we've done, actually. It wasn't because of us. It's because of what God said. So we got a Discord link. Make sure you add all the people that are in this message. In Discord, I put the believers in blue. Their names are in blue. The ministers are in red. In Discord, believe what the ministers said. It means that we trust them. We trust what they're saying. They've been in this. They've been preaching. They're in unity with us. Right? They actually preach the message and give their life for it. But become friends with all the people in blue. Be in unity with all of them. Go check out the website that we have, postchristianchurchofgod.com. I'll put that there. I'll also put my books in the link of this video, or links in the description of this video. Anyway, the world is just crazy. They don't tell enough truth. You can't have a personal relationship with God. God is a real God. He's real truth. He's real unity. He's real movements. He's real amazing. He's real powerful, and we need to make it to heaven, and we need to love one another.